How do you comp a wrap deal? What is the math behind a wraparound mortgage deal? In this video, I'm going to teach you all you need to know about how to calculate a wraparound mortgage deal in creative financing. So let me just break this down real quick. Wraps. I made videos on wraps. I love wraps. And what a wrap is when you buy a house, there's a house, right? We have a house. And the house has an underlying mortgage. Let's say this mortgage is for $500,000 at 3% interest. Now, this could be a conventional loan. This could be an FHA loan. This could be a VA loan. It can be a regular mortgage. Or it could be a house that you're buying subject to. You're going to take over the mortgage. Or it could be a seller finance loan. It doesn't matter. It is debt on the property. And it is usually debt on a property with a low rate. And what you're doing is you are buying the house usually, or you already own the house, and you are reselling it. But you're not selling the house. Think of it as selling the loan. Think of it as flipping loans, right? And you are going to resell it. Maybe you increase the equity, right? Maybe you resell it at 600,000 if you can, okay? And then the most important thing is it's less so the equity, it's more so the interest rate. Then you're going to resell it at a higher interest rate. And you are making what we call in the industry a spread, right? I just gave you the high level overview of wraps. If you don't understand wraps well enough, well, I mean, this video will help you, but this is more on the math, right? This is your spread. And banks, the world, finance in general lives off of spreads, right? That is how a wrap works. But it's not so easy to do the math behind a wrap because we have an amortization schedule in real estate. We have amortization schedules, and that's different than in traditional, let's say, banking and all this fun stuff. Real estate's like the only thing that does amortization schedules, and it makes calculating this little spread right here a nightmare. But that nightmare is going to be completely resolved in this video. I'm going to show you how to do it. It takes a little bit of work. You're going to have to sit through this video. You're going to have to think a little bit, but I'll help you once and for all. Before I teach you how to calculate a wrap, let me disprove some myths, and I'll try writing a little bit better because I was writing terrible earlier. So a $500,000 house, or $500,000 mortgage, I should say, with a 3% interest rate, okay? And let's say these are all 30 years, right? We'll make our life easy. Let's just say everything is 30 years. We're going to buy the house with a 30-year loan, and we're going to resell the house with a 30-year loan. And we're reselling at a higher price at $100,000 with a 7% interest rate. Let's disprove some myths. You would think it'd be easy. So on the $500,000 initially, you're making a 4% spread, right? So on the $500,000, you're making, I'm going to try to write better, guys. $500,000, you're making a 4% spread. Where do I get that 4%? It's the difference between what you're paying the bank, 3% every month, or the seller if it's seller finance, and what you're getting from the new buyers, your dueño a dueño buyers, right? That's a 4% spread. Sorry, I almost broke my cup there. I don't know if you heard that, right? And then the other 100,000 and what you're getting more for the property, that is a 7% spread because there's no loan on that amount, right? That's just equity. So the equity, you don't need to be paying the bank or anybody. That's a 7% spread. So you'd think the math would be easy, right? You'd think it would just be, Max, this is easy. Why do I need a video on this? I'm a math genius. It's just 4% of 500,000 and 7% of 100,000, which is $27,000 a year, right? Or a little bit over $2,000 a month. You think that would be your spread? Easy. But that's not the case because of what I told you earlier, because of the evil amortization schedules. It becomes a lot harder to calculate wraps because it's not being paid off linearly the same. Your interest is paid off first with a little bit of principal, and then the principal is paid off more near the end. That's how amortization schedules work. The interest is front loaded. The banks want their money earlier. They want their interest earlier, and you start paying your principal later. But the same thing works when you're wrapping it. When you're selling it with seller financing, you're getting your interest first and the principal is coming in later. So how the heck do you calculate this? Let me show you right now. The first thing we have to do is calculate the original loan. And if you haven't watched my video on how to calculate a subject to loan or subject to deal, go watch that. It's somewhere over there. It's somewhere over there. Go watch that because you need to understand that first in order to understand this, right? You need to understand how to acquire a property, whether it's subject to, whether it's seller financing, or whether it's just a regular property with a conventional loan, you need to understand that math. And then now we need to understand how the math is when you're seller financing it and keeping the two together. This is a complex video, but here we go. Enough talking. Okay, so before we calculate our wrap, we need to calculate how we're buying the house. So let's just say we're buying a $750,000 house. All right. It's a $750,000 house. And this house, we're going to be buying it subject to. But remember, we could be buying houses anyway with wraps. They just have to have a mortgage. You can go to the bank, get an FHA loan, or you could, I don't know, do seller financing. It doesn't matter. The property just needs to have a mortgage, but we have to have something in order to wrap it. So we're just going to do an easy sub-2 deal, right? So 750,000. We are just going to say that the mortgage is 700,000 at 2.75%. All right. Bear with me. I know I don't write well. 2.75% for 30 years. Now, what is our monthly payment? Well, let's use an amortization calculator. Okay, here we go. 700,000. If you've never used an amortization calculator, you're missing out. This is my favorite hobby. 2.75%. This tells you how much our monthly payments are going to be. All right, so your monthly payments are $2,857 a month. Let's remember that. But the reason this is important is, again, this is how an amortization schedule works. You see how much interest you're paying down originally? You're paying down a lot more interest than you are principal. That is how amortization works. You pay interest first. But look, if you were to put this at 8%, obviously your monthly payment goes up, but look how much interest is front loaded. $55,000 in interest the first year, and only $5,000 you're paying off on your house. 55, 6,000, 54, 6,000. That's crazy. And only near the end are you finally paying off your principal. The banks make a lot of money. And that's why we need to have to do all this math. It's because of amortization schedules. So anyways, $2,857 is our amount. So let's flip back over. 2,857. Just to simplify it, we're going to just say 2,850. Got it? This is our PI, our principal and interest. This is not our taxes and insurance, right? This is not all of our holding costs. We could continue to calculate what our rent is and then subtract our PI and our TI, right? And our other holding costs like maintenance and capital expenditures and all that stuff. And we could get cash flow. And we could then calculate our entry fee, right? We could calculate our entry fee. And then we could get our cash on cash return. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go watch my last video. But we don't need to calculate all of that for a wrap deal. If we were buying this property subject to was going to be our disposition strategy, meaning we were just going to turn this into a long-term rental. We're just going to keep this a sub-2 property and turn it into a long-term rental. Our long-term rental was our disposition strategy. Then you would calculate all this. But our disposition strategy is not a rental. It's not a rental. Our disposition strategy is a wrap. So now that we have our monthly payment, and our monthly payment is the only thing we actually care about, now we can calculate the wrap. So what we're going to do now is we're essentially going to recalculate this with seller financing, but at a higher interest rate and maybe a higher sales price. And then we're going to subtract the two. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe it wasn't actually that bad. Let's do it right now. So we know we have a $750,000 acquisition price. So we have to sell this property higher than $750,000. A lot of people have problems with their wrap deals where they buy a property, sub-2 or seller financing for too much money, even though it has a low rate, and then try to wrap it. So if you were trying to wrap this at, 700 and why do I keep using red? Red is such a negative color. It brings the mood down. If you were going to try to wrap this at 730,000, right, at a 9% interest rate, you're probably like, yo, bro, I'm making so much money. And we could calculate that real quickly. How much money would you be making? This is actually a good example. So how much money would you be making? So you buy this house with a 2.75% mortgage at a $700,000 loan for 30 years, and you're paying $2,850 a month. And you resell it at $730,000 at 9%. And maybe now you ask for a $30,000 down payment. So with wraps, you can get a down payment, which is super cool. So you can not do a down payment, but I recommend getting a down payment. So maybe you ask for a $30,000 down payment. Maybe you ask for a $60,000 down payment. It doesn't matter. But just to make things simple, let's say you ask for a $30,000 down payment. Now your loan is obviously going to be not $730,000, it's going to be $700,000. The cool part about this is that now your entry fee is lower. You can subtract this from your entry fee. So a really cool thing with wraps, something I just want to explain real quick. If you're lost, I'm sorry. I'm sure you'll catch right back up. The cool thing is wraps is your goal with a wrap is to not only make money every single month, but it's actually could be in the deal $0. You heard me right. When you're wrapping a deal, and if you wrap a deal correctly, let's say your entry fee for sub 2 or seller finance to get into a house was 60,000, okay? Now you wrap the property and you get 60, 70, $80,000 back in a down payment from the seller. You could be in the deal $0. So you're in the property $0. Now you don't own the property anymore, but you own the debt. And now you're getting paid every single month. It costs you $0 to make passive income. That's so sick. That's the goal with wraps. So we'll talk about that right now. But the goal is to get your whole entry fee out. Not always possible, but that's always the goal. So let's walk back to this. Let me explain to you why you need to sell it for higher than your acquisition price. Our acquisition price is $750. We don't want to be wrapping at $730, a very common mistake, and I'm going to stress this right now. Let's flip back over to the amortization calculator. Remember, all these loans are 30 years, okay? So I said a $700,000 loan, right, because we're getting $30,000 down payment and at 9% interest. Whoa, 5,632. So let's say 5,632. Oh my God, where am I? There we go, 5,632. That's how much money the seller is paying for PI. Now you're probably wondering, why would a seller pay that much? These sellers are usually people who don't qualify for loans. They don't qualify. And 9% is not that expensive to someone who doesn't qualify. Maybe he has bad credit, the bank won't lend to him. Maybe he's young, like me, and the bank won't lend to him. He doesn't show a lot of income. Maybe he just has a lot of cash. He doesn't want to spend his cash, but he's in a cash business and he doesn't qualify. So many reasons why people don't qualify for loans. It's not because they're bad owners or tenants or whatever. It's just a lot of times people just don't qualify. A lot of international people, a lot of Hispanic buyers, a lot of people, and their culture is different. They don't really use banks like we do in the US. They don't qualify. So they're happy to pay more for a property just so they can get in. So this means that if you're charging them $5,632 a month, they're still paying the taxes and insurance on their own. They're still paying the maintenance. They own the house. They're paying all the costs. They're just paying you $5,632 per month. Then you're going to subtract that by the $2,850. So let's do 5,632 minus the 2,800, and did I say 50 or about 50? And now that gives us our spread. This is our spread. That's all we had to do. We had to calculate using an amortization calculator how much money our current or first loan costs, and then how much we're going to sell or finance it at per month. And then we calculate our spread. But I want to show you why we need to sell it for more. You'll see in a second. So our spread is equal to $2,718. You're making $2,718 per month in profit. Profit. That's profit. This is passive income profit. Where do you get passive income profit in real estate? But here is just a little problem I want to show you. What if in 6 months or 12 months, the seller pays off his loan or refinances? You would lose money because not only do you have an entry fee, he's also paying off a loan of $730. Right? So yes, you would make money over time, but you want to make sure that the sale price is higher than your acquisition price. So probably like $780. And that's why it's so important to not overpay for properties when you're wrapping them. You want to have instant equity. If you're still confused about that, it's okay. Just understand what I'm trying to tell you. Don't buy a property sub 2 seller finance expecting to wrap it and you paid too much for that property. You need to have some equity built in. Otherwise, there's a risk that when you go to wrap the property, the seller refinances earlier, pays off the loan, you lose this passive income. This is done. There's no prepayment penalties because prepayment penalties are sort of illegal to set up in the US. Really, really dangerous territory. So be careful with prepayment penalties. Speak to an attorney. But they pay off this loan early. Maybe they win the lottery. Who knows the reason they pay off the loan early? They refinance. They finally are able to qualify and they refinance when rates fall. Now they're paying off your cheap home purchase price and you're out money. So that's just a quick rant, but let's go back to calculating. What I did right there, that's how we calculated a wrap. So let's calculate it one more time and I won't rant about selling a home early or whatever. Let's just do one more calculation. Okay, let's just take a step back, everyone. I know I went on a long rant. Let's just summarize. We bought a house for $750,000, right? It had a mortgage balance of $700,000, right? at 2.75%. And then it was 30 years as always, right? We're just using 30 years. And our monthly payment was $2,850. That's our principal and interest. This is a great property to wrap if you can sell it for high enough. So maybe now, let's just say our entry fee to get into this deal was $70,000. A little high, but not the worst I've seen, right? That's not too bad. $70,000 entry fee. If we want to calculate our cash on cash return and all that, right, we can do all that, but that's not our focus right now. Just remember these numbers. And now we're looking to wrap. So now you have a deal and you want to know if a wrap's a good option. Well, you would calculate it as a long-term rental and see what your returns are. And you would compare that to what you get as returns for a wrap. So if you were to wrap this, we just talked about it. Let's just go back to our example. Let's just say you could sell the house for $800,000. Is that good? It's better. Let's talk about that. $800,000. You could sell the house for $800,000. You're asking a 10% down payment, okay? And then you're going to do 8% interest for 30 years. So how does that math work out? So that means you get $80,000 cash. Is that good? Well, that's actually pretty good. So you get $80,000 cash. And we talked about it. Our entry fee was actually $70,000. So you actually end up making $10,000. You end up making $10,000 right off the bat. But let's be careful there. When you're wrapping a deal, you may have some extra costs. You may have closing costs to pay. You may have agent commissions to pay. You may have more things just like the entry fee, right? So be careful. Make sure you calculate everything. Closing costs are popular, realtor fees, because you may need a realtor to help you sell this property. A lot of things that go into it. Maybe you still need to rehab the property more. You may have to give buyer concessions. Buyer concessions are really popular. So be careful. That $10,000 that you think you're making a profit, that could disappear really fast. But let's just say that $10,000 becomes $2,000. So you now made $2,000 pure profit. Sick. Go take your girlfriend or something out to a really, really expensive dinner. Okay, that's just your how much money you make in immediately. Almost like when you're calculating burrs or things like that, you try to see how much money you'll get out of the deal. Really important to see if you can get money out of the deal with wraps. But now we want to calculate the loan amount, right? So we go back to our amortization calculator. When you start doing these things a lot, you will religiously have an amortization calculator out all the time. Remember, I said $720,000 now, 30 years at 8%. I mean, this just becomes second nature. 5283. Okay, so then we flip back over. 5283. So now our monthly payment is 5283. That's how much money we're receiving every single month. Now we're going to subtract that by what we're getting for our sub 2 deal, which was 2850, and that gives us our cash flow of 2,433 if my math is right. That's your cash flow. And now you could calculate your cash on cash return. So you know that you're in this deal. How much are we in this deal? We're in this deal. Well, actually, we got cash back of 2,000. So it's almost impossible to calculate your cash on cash return because you got cash back. But let's just say that you're not in this deal 2,000. You didn't get paid $2,000. Let's say it cost you. Even after you got your down payment, it cost you, let's not use green because we're talking about costing you. Let's say it cost you $20,000 now. After we subtract our down payment, we got our entry fee, we subtracted our down payment. Let's say it actually cost us $20,000 to get into this deal. For example, our entry fee was 70 grand, but to sell this property, remember I told you there can be costs involved. There's realtor costs sometimes, right? There's closing costs. There's always costs in life, right? Well, let's just say these costs actually amounted to a nice 30,000. Not uncommon at all when you're doing wraps, so don't forget that. Now our entry fee is actually 100,000, 70 plus 30. It costs us 70 to get the sub 2 deal. It costs us $30,000 to exit the wrap deal, but we got $80,000 back. I hope this is all making sense. So now 100,000 minus 80,000 is 20, right? So now we're back at 20. So our cash in the deal. You can think of this as entry fee or cash in the deal. Our cash in the deal is 20,000. But what's our cash flow? Well, our cash flow is $2,433 a month. That's so much money. $2,433 a month. You make so much money with wraps. This is why people love wraps, because you can find such low rate deals. You can find such beautiful interest rate sub 2 or seller finance deals and then resell them at such high interest rates. And this is not even high anymore. I see people wrapping at 10, 11, 12%. I'd rather wrap at a lower rate and get a really good buyer who's not going to destroy my house and I have the risk of going in with a foreclosure and having to rehab the whole property. That's my game. I'd rather not be greedy for the few percent and rather get a good buyer. But hey, yo, you can still make a ton of money. Make a ton of money. And if you have questions about that foreclosure thing and all those rants, I'll make more videos on wraps. But we're doing math here, everyone. So you're making $2,433 a month in profit. And I mean profit. There's no cost because the buyer is paying taxes. The buyer is paying insurance. The buyer is paying maintenance. The buyer owns the property. He's the buyer. You're the seller. You're the bank. You don't fix tenants and toilets. He does all the work. When there's a problem, he doesn't call you. He just sends you your checks every single month. So you're making $2,433 in profit. He is paying you $5,283 a month. You are paying the bank $2,850 a month because you're paying down your sub 2 loan and you're keeping $2,433. So you do this math and then we divide that by 20 and that's going to give us our cash on cash return. Cash on cash return. Everything we do in creative finance, everything we do in real estate investing should revolve around cash on cash return. It is the single most important formula in real estate investing. It makes cap rate look like a little, I hate cap rate in comparison to cash on cash return. So let's do the math. 29,196. That's how much profit you're making per year. Now, this example is probably a little bit extreme. You're not going to maybe make this much, but wraps make a lot of money and they make a lot of money for a good reason because they're complicated. Not everyone can do it. You're making $29,196 in profit per year. Now, what's our cash on cash return? This is going to blow your mind. And this is why I love wraps. It costs you barely any amount of money to make this much money. If you can see this, this is going to be over 100%. Let me look this up right now. Your cash on cash returns is 146%. Again, this example is maybe a little bit extreme, but it's 146% where you can make 146% returns anywhere else. Stock market's giving you 8% returns. Real estate usually gives you, 5% returns plus appreciation. Wraps make you a lot of money if done well, but they're also risky and they take a lot of skill. So make sure you know what you're doing, but you need to understand the math. So 146%. Damn, I really should have used maybe some more realistic numbers. But this looked realistic to me. I don't know, man. I love wraps. I just love wraps. Now, what are you not getting when you're wrapping? Well, you're not getting depreciation because you don't own the property anymore. You're not getting the depreciation every year. Guess what else you're not getting? Depreciation's best friend. Appreciation. Because you don't own the property, right? The new buyer gets those things. So sure, you're making money in the short term and the long term if they keep the loan going, but you're not getting the depreciation and appreciation that comes with real estate. So that's how you calculate a wrap. So let me just quickly summarize because I gave you guys a ton of information and I know you guys are maybe so confused or maybe you understand it perfectly. But you're probably a little bit confused, but you just got to keep practicing this stuff. You need to calculate how to, get a sub 2 seller finance or typical house, right? So obviously you have a loan. You got to figure out the terms of your loan. So you just have a loan on a house. You got a loan on a house. It doesn't matter. You got a loan on a house. You need to know what the monthly payment is. So you calculate the monthly payment on your current loan. The monthly payment on your current loan. And all you're doing is saying, if I were to resell this house, how much would my seller financing terms be? So you're reselling the house with seller financing. We're calling it a wrap, but just think of it as seller financing. And then you just use an amortization calculator to calculate it. You need to find the new monthly payment, and then you're going to subtract the two, and then we're going to find our net monthly payment. So you subtract them, and then you just find the net monthly payment. And that is your cash flow. That's all you have to do for cash flow. But it's also important to calculate the cost to get into the deal, right? And the amount of money that it cost you for your entry fee for this original property, like what was your original entry fee? And also how much money in a down payment did you receive? And then you subtract those two, and you also need to add in your new costs for this deal because you also had entry fees here. You subtract those, and then that's also going to give you your net entry fee, all right? Or whatever you want to call it. That's going to be like your net entry fee. And then here you can obviously find your, your cash on cash return for the whole deal. Just keep practicing those. Just keep practicing this. Watch this video over and over if you have to. If you want me to make another video, if you want me to be a little bit less crazy, just tell me. I hope that helped you calculate wraps and the beautiful power of wraps. They're beautiful. I just don't know what to say. I just love the concept of wraps. But just so you know, wraps are risky because you got to buy it cheap. Remember, you got to buy these properties a little cheap, not too cheap, just a little cheap. You got to be able to resell it for more. You got to make sure you find good buyers. The buyers have a high likelihood of foreclosing because they're not qualified buyers. But if you do everything well and you play your cards right, you're going to make beautiful passive income. My goal in real estate, hear me out here. This is a little secret for you. If you stayed till the end, I'm going to bless you with the secret. Buy properties sub 2 and seller finance when rates are low and prices are dirt cheap, like the next recession. It's going to happen. Pick up every property you can for no money down. Get all these deals. This is my goal. This is my 10-year plan. You want to hear my 10-year plan? And then when the market's hot, think, right, like 2021, 2022, sell the properties. Sell them. But don't sell them like a typical guy would sell them cash. If you need cash, it's okay. Sell a couple cash, but your tax consequences are going to be brutal, right? Because you've already depreciated the crap out of this property and you bought them so cheap, your appreciation, your cost base is going to be so low. So don't just sell them, wrap them, and defer your taxable income over time. I'm just going to summarize what I said, guys. Buy a property. I'm gonna make a video on this. This is so sick. Buy properties cheap in the next recession, sub 2 seller finance. Sell properties at the top of the market about 10 years later. That's usually how the cycle works with seller financing on wraps. You play your cards right in a 10-year period, you never need to work again in your life. You do maybe 10 of those and you're making, I don't know, $20,000 a month in passive income. You're done. You chill, you sit back and you become a YouTuber. That's it. Okay, bye.